You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and today, man, we're going to have a true honor talking to our special guest. So first and foremost, happy Friday. We have our guest, Shannon Russell. She is a career transition business coach and CEO of Second Act Success Coaching. You can go to her website. It's secondactsuccess.co. We're going to learn everything about all she has done. She spent 16 years plus as a successful television producer, creating content for big names, big companies, big projects. So I want to cut right to the chase and say, first of all, Shannon, thank you for your time today. Spending some time with us. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here with you, Shamaya. Thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show with us. A little bit about your story. I know I kind of showed in the introduction, sharing about your 16 years plus in TV production. What was the aha moment, if you will, that made you say, you know what, it's time for something new, switch gears?
Yeah, I absolutely loved working in the entertainment industry. That was my dream since I was a little girl. But it was this one particular moment running through the Times Square subway station in heels when I was 8 months pregnant that I realized, you know what? This is a little too much. The hours were long. I had a 3-year-old at the time. I was missing bedtime, missed his first birthday, missed Halloween. And I was just like, you know what? There's got to be more to this. So I need to figure out what else I can do and start a second act in my life.
When you think about the process of just being in that environment, I can only imagine being media myself. I can only imagine you being the TV business, how cutthroat it is, and every time is crucial. So how were you able to use those experiences to kind of propel you into your new venture?
You know, and you can relate because it's so high paced and it's fast and long hours and you've got to be on all the time, right? Because you're making deals, you're marketing, it's a team effort on all the projects that you work on. So there's so much to it. And when I was trying to figure out what else I could do, it took me a while and I was struggling, trying to figure out what can a television producer do that's not on a set or not at a production company. But then I started realizing that the idea of what a producer does is take that idea for a show and literally do everything to get that onto your screen or onto your phone or your computer. And I was like, I can do this again. I can produce my own life and I'm going to produce a business. So I got into entrepreneurship and I was like, I'm going to take this idea and produce a business. And so once I realized that it was transferable, my skills could help me and I had an advantage now. I've worked on these huge projects. I can work on my small little starter business and see how it can grow.
Tell us a little bit about the heart of Second Act Success, because everyone, when you're making a business move and you're trying to sell an idea, you have to first identify your audience, your market, and the pain points. So kind of tell us, what was the process like for you putting together this new venture?
Yeah, well, when I was thinking about it, I realized how much I struggled trying to find my self-identity and figure out what else I could do when I left my career. And I thought about all the other people who are in the same position as me, where maybe that career they started in their 20s doesn't fit in their 30s, 40s, and beyond, and that they need that almost permission to start something new and to realize that they can take their experience and their skills and transfer it. So when I started thinking about that, and I really wanted to help other people, especially at that age, when I started a few years ago, it was other women my age who had kids and were thinking, okay, I'm stuck. This doesn't align anymore, but what else can I do? And I was like, I think I can reach them, help them, and be that accountability partner to help them get from where they are to where they want to be, where they can feel excited about going to work and also be able to be there for their kids and have that flexibility. So that's really where it all stemmed from, of wanting to help others in that way and teach them that they do have skills and experience and they can build a business off of that and really find that fulfillment in life.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio and watching this online. We're talking to our special guest, Shannon Russell. She is a career transition and business coach and the CEO of Second Act Success. You can go to her website, secondactsuccess.co. When you think about coaching your clients and working with people, a lot of times people are try and turn that day job into a new venture, a new opportunity. What's some of the maybe pain points or biggest mistakes you see when people are trying to build up to prepare for that transition?
Good question. There's so many. I think a lot of times it's feeling like their fear of a known, which we all have whenever we're trying something new. But not just that, there's a lot of people who have literally said to me, well, doesn't everyone hate their job? And who am I to make this change? Shouldn't I just suck it up and wait for that perfect time, wait for retirement, wait for the kids to be out of the house, all of these things. And it's like, no, you can start now and you can do it in a safe, methodical way that doesn't wreak havoc in your life. You just have to have a plan, and you just have to, be responsible. Look at your finances. How much can you afford? Do you need to work a little bit longer before you bring this business idea to the forefront and have it be full time? But there's always that fear, the fear of, can I do it? It's the unknown. And the big one is, what will other people think? They know me as this, and now I'm going to say I'm changing and I'm going to start a business. What will they think? I think that holds people back. And unfortunately, there are some people when that happens that they just crawl back into their shell and they don't ever try it, which is unfortunate, because you want to at least try something. And if it doesn't work, then you can go back to what you were doing, but you don't want to live in that regret of never having tried.
When you look at how you've been able to not just transition yourself from one career to another to being your own boss. I mean, we know you have to wear many hats. You have to have so many meetings. How do you kind of balance, if you will? If you have a different word, let me know. But how do you try to attempt to balance the demand of time? Because as you get higher and higher, you have to be very crucial with how you build your calendar and continue to be able to add value to your customer base.
Yeah. And it's like, if you look at why I left my first career, it was to have that balance, to spend more time with my kids and not have that schedule. So I had to be very mindful in building my businesses that, I can shut things off at 3:00 when they get home from school, and I can, schedule for what works for me. And I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I make sure that if I'm speaking, I'm gone for no more than like 24 hours if I can help it, because I fly out, I do the event, and then I fly home, because the kids are the priority. So I think as long as you know what your priorities are, you know your why, and you kind of stick to it and you build the business alongside that, then everything's always in check. And it's not always easy at all. But I think as my kids are older, they're now 10 and 13, they understand, and they kind of love that I have my business, I have a podcast, I speak, I write, I have a book coming out, like all of those things. They look at it as cool, and they are learning that they don't have to choose just one thing when they get older. They can choose several different things. So I feel like as much as I try to balance and delegate and all of the things, I'm doing it in a sense with my why kind of at the center. And the why is really my boys, so that they can do this when they get older.
And speaking of your why, earlier you talked about transferable skills. When someone thinks about how they can identify with their transferable skills and apply it to their new business, what's some of the things that you feel makes people get kind of cold feet, if you will? Because it's a great idea, but when life starts happening, you start questioning. That inner voice starts to whisper some doubts, like, is this truly what you want? How do you kind of deal with those situations? Because it's not something that anyone can avoid. It's something that is eventually will happen to you.
Mm-hmm. I think if you write down your skills, like that's the first step, pen and paper, old school, like write down everything that you can do in your current role and everything you've done before. Maybe you worked in retail, maybe you were a waiter or waitress. Write down everything and then look at what you can do. And a lot of times people will say, oh, there's nothing special here. Everyone can do this, which is not true. You're so close to it that you think that. But when you really take that step back and you look at what you have done and what you've accomplished, and then you look at what maybe that idea is that's been swirling in your head, and you can see the alignment. You can see that, oh, I have worked retail. I know how to put out fires. I know how to deal with customers. I know how to work on a team. And all of those skills, as simple as you might think they are, can really help you in building a business. And so as you do that research and you start thinking about yourself and what you can bring to the table, you start getting that confidence. And I think that helps you kind of stay the path and move forward as you start going, yeah, I can do this. And this is how all of this experience from my past is going to come with me. I'm not getting rid of it. It's just growing with me as I add on more adventures in my life and new challenges for myself.
I like how you said how it grows with you, because I think that is very important to take notice on, because when you understand where you've been, it's like, okay, if I was successful in this area, there's no reason why I can't try this new thing. A lot of it is based on fear, why we think we can do something. And we're all are going to face those challenges. I wake up with fear every day, but it's how you address it that matters. So kind of touch down on for the audience, for those watching and listening, because a lot of times we might look at social media and we look at certain brands or certain influencers, and we just assume that they're never afraid. Like they just have this magic and everything just kind of flows because they have so much experience and they just kind of wake up with no problems. Mm-hmm. How do you address fear when it strikes and not allow it to paralyze your goals and what you're trying to execute on?
I try to live by the check all the boxes kind of theory for my life personally. Like, okay, I achieved this dream that I had when I was 5 years old. I worked in TV. Check. I accomplished that, celebrate that. What else can I do? Okay, I opened my first business. Check. That was great. I opened my coaching business. Great. I want to write a book. I wrote a book. Check. Like, so just kind of always challenging yourself. And the fear is always going to be there, but you can look at it like, yeah, it's scary to do any of those things, but look at the fear and say, well, that's what life is about. It's a challenge. Let me see if I can do it. And I'm still the same person, whether I accomplish it or I don't. And to kind of, it's all about that mindset, really. And I'm no more perfect than anyone else. I'm just as scared, like you said, waking up and going, oh, is this call going to go okay? Is the client going to be happy, et cetera, et cetera. But to say, I'm going to try my hardest at it. And worst comes to worst, it fails. It doesn't work out. I'm still the same person. And now I know what didn't work and I can figure it out. So I think if in any transition to kind of look at it like a challenge, like a game, and say, I'm going to try it. I'll have no regrets at the end of the day if I do try. And I'm still that same person. So I can still go back and produce TV tomorrow if I wanted to. And anyone who transfers can always go back. You still have those skills. And that gives you a little reassurance too, don't you think? Of like, hey, why not? I'm still that same person, but I want to challenge myself and have that fear fuel me rather than, scare me. And easier said than done, of course. But I think when you just try to keep reminding yourself that every day, you'll get a little bit further.
Yeah, because the key word reassurance, I think when you look at the opportunities that are ahead, it starts with what's on your plate. So this past week, a lot of things have been happening for the show, and it's all about you, but just a quick testimonial. The show is growing. We're growing with a lot of new partnerships and just people behind the scenes talking to us like, man, we've been watching, we got some ideas. We want to do some collaborations with you. But long story short is when you focus on what is on your plate, because a lot of times we want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to say, well, why am I not there? Why am I not doing this and doing this yet? Why am I not this successful? But we have to sometimes slow down and say, okay, let me ask this question. What is on my plate right now? Because a lot of times we ignore the vegetables We want to get right to the Krispy Kremes, right? We want the easy stuff. We want the stuff that makes us smile, makes us happy, but we don't want to get to the nitty gritty, important things. And I'm trying to land the plane, but basically what I'm saying is when you focus on your plate, you now can focus on what is important, and that will help you with your priorities. And as you still from you start checking out those boxes, you will now be prepared for the future opportunities because now you have positioned yourself to have a solid foundation.
Whew, that is good advice. I love that. And congrats on all the happenings behind the scenes too. That's exciting. But so right. I feel like it's what can I handle now, one step at a time, and handle that, accomplish that, and then everything else will fall into place and more opportunities will come. So I completely agree.
Yeah, as a coach, when you are dealing with clients, I can only imagine a lot of times they're in the middle of wanting to make that transition from their career to starting their business. That's a scary move. It's nothing guaranteed. They say if you try to start a business, you're a crazy person because a lot of times, most of the times, it will fail. And I'm here to tell you, it will fail. Okay, it's going to fail, and sometimes that's the best part. And I know that sounds crazy, but the thing is, once you understand what you're missing, that's the fun part. And no, I'm not saying the painful part is fun, but I'm just saying when you start to learn from those mistakes and from those issues and from those fires, you now can use that as a tool to fine tune what your why is, what your passion is. Like if you can think of something that you can do without someone paying you, then you might be on the right track. If you're doing something that just drains you and kind of just takes you to, man, I need to get a drink tonight. Well, then you might want to have a come to Jesus moment and say, okay, maybe I should rethink the business model or what I'm doing. Because a lot of times, going back to what I was saying earlier to tie it all together, if someone's making that transition to start something new as a business, it's a big gap because the school of hard knocks in the business world is totally different than corporate.
Yeah. It is. And it's all those steps, though. It's what you learn. And like you said, you can twist it, you can change it, and you can see that the business isn't working. And what can you do to turn it around? Right. So it might fail at first, and you're going to keep figuring it out and testing it and seeing what the customers or clients want. And that is the fun part, right? Of really figuring it out, and you're learning along the way. And that's okay. You're not going to just go from I quit to I'm making my salary plus in a business. I often say to clients, like, it's going to be a year, 18 months or more until you're really bringing your revenue into your own bank account. It's all going to go back into the business for a while. So you need to prepare for that. You need to know that there's going to be pain points and things and struggles. But once you can get past that first leap or that first hurdle, then the next one becomes easier and it becomes easier, and you just start focusing in on what you want your business to be and how it can help and serve others.
Once again, you listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Shannon Russell, career transition business coach and CEO of Second Act Success Coaching. Go to her website, secondactsuccess.co. When you think about how opportunities are out there, no cliche, but that's the truth. Opportunities are out there. The biggest twist is the plot twist. It takes a lot of work. Okay. It's not like you can snap your fingers because everyone can say abracadabra, make me rich. Everyone in this world be rich, but that's not how it works. It's basically like you have to have a mindset that this is what you want to do. And no matter how long it takes for you to do it, you got to do it. No one's going to come across the street and say, hey, man, you want me to run that business for you? I mean, you might get lucky and that might happen. But from a reality standpoint, you have to show up every day. So as a CEO, how do you kind of teach your clients that just showing up every day is going to position you for a better future? Because when we're trying to express the fact that we might need some more education in certain areas, it's a thing to be proud of, not ashamed of, because it allows us to have a better chance to refine what we're trying to build. So kind of give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's funny how we leave a job and we actually end up working more hours and having a little bit more stress building a business, but it's on our own account. It's ours. And I think when you look at the goals in front of you, I like to break down the goals and kind of figure out a timeline. And you can say, okay, well, I'm just thinking of one client who was able to quit her teaching job, and she opened a small business where she kind of hosted classes for babies and families in her community. She rented out churches and, recreation centers. And she said, I want to open a brick and mortar. And I said, okay, are you there yet? And she said, no. And then we worked towards it with a timeline, how she could get there. And she opened last fall. And it was cool to see that she stood the course as hard as it was. She knew it wasn't going to happen overnight, but she put the work in. She learned back to courses. She had to take some different classes to figure out what would this be, meet with the local, zoning boards, and so much education. But now she has her dream place open. And so it was just being patient, doing the hard work, putting in the effort, and then you'll get there. It might not be tomorrow, but you'll get there very soon, eventually. But it's all about what you learn and those contacts that you make along the way too, that just help build you as a business owner and build your network.
So that educational piece is something, just hearing from what you just said moments ago, that's something that is a key, not just for your clients, but and how they work with you, because you're not just giving them a lollipop and say, hey man, you put this golden sticker on your calendar. You're just going to manifest this amazing business life. We know that's not the case, but you're actually giving them tools. And someone wise told me, in life, what we're really doing is we're picking up tools to put in our toolbox along the way. And I think that is a good observation, because if you just go through life and you don't pick up any tools, what you're doing, because you won't be able to work on anything. So it's never too late to, like I said, go get that help. Someone like our guest today, Shannon, get help from her. She's going to give you the tools, the resources, and the info, because knowledge that is applied makes a difference. But just simply receiving the knowledge, but not doing anything with it, you're better off never showing up in the first place. So I know this went by so fast, but kind of wrap this all up for our viewers, our listeners. When someone's working with you, what are some of the things that they can do to kind of prepare for the maximum impact that they can have with your services?
We set up goals each week when we meet, and it's important to do the work that you're saying and come back the next week so that we can make that progress. And sometimes I'll have clients who will show up and they're like, oh, I didn't do anything, and it's fine. That's your time, but let's try to hit our goals. And I think by having that accountability partner, we can work together. And I like to utilize my network and my past experience and help my clients out and just really focus on their why and when they want to get there and how to get there the most methodically and strategically, because their win is my win. And I love nothing more than to see someone open a business or find where they really feel like they're contributing to society and their family all at the same time. So yeah, I love that analogy of picking up those tools, and it can be a podcast like this or reading books. It doesn't have to be going back to school, but it's learning from others around you and being a lifelong learner, because that's going to get you that much further quicker. Really great point.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio, watching us online. You can go watch us on Refocused Radio or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Refocused Network. Talking to our special guest, Shannon Russell. When you look at the opportunity to not just say, man, I'm doing this podcast, I'm spreading the good news of what I'm doing as a business, but you're doing what you're telling people that they should be doing. You're building your skills. You're building your experience, and you are revealing to everybody kind of like a review moment of here's what I've done. So you actually, it's like full circle. Everything you're saying, you're already doing it. Because if you weren't, you probably would be on these shows. So our last thoughts, if you had some wisdom to share, everyone's story is different, but someone watching this and listening is like, you know what? I think I really want to make that transition from my career to start my own business. If you had something for a beginner that would be helpful for them to marinate on, what would you share with them that would help them build a smooth transition that may not be as smooth later when they start the business, but at least they're well equipped versus going in just blind?
Yeah. Well, first, give yourself grace. Know that it's not a sprint. It's definitely a long game, and learn before you leap. I think that researching what it is that you want to do to fully understand what you're getting into is so crucial and so important. So if you have a couple ideas, write it down, research what someone who is working in that business day to day, what their life is like. You know, what is it? Is it going to be long hours? Is it going to be hiring a huge team? Is it going to be a big investment? Learn before you leap. Learn about that role, that business. Do your market research, because you might be able to say, oh, that's not really for me anyway, and cross it off your list. Or you might be able to say, yes, that is exactly what I want to do. Here are the reasons why. Now I feel confident. Now I can go and tell my spouse or my friends and my family about it and feel that confidence because you're 100% sure. So I think really learning before you leap so that you don't just jump into something else because you're unhappy and realize that you're unhappy there too.
I call it the shiny new toy, because a lot of times we're like, well, so-and-so make a killing in that business, so why can't I do it? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you think you can do it, that's fine. But do not be so naive that you think that, oh, I'm just going to snap my fingers and it's going to happen. A lot of times you just have to really search yourself and see what's actually translating out there, because until it starts to make a connection, you're going to have to keep trying to find out what's actually going to work, because you're going to be in some very frustrating times if you try to do something that you just feel like it's a good idea for them, it must work for me. So if someone wants to connect with you and set up an appointment, what's the best way that they can start that process?
Yeah, they can DM me on Instagram at Second Act Success, or go to secondactsuccess.co. That's info on my book, my coaching, and free resources too.
Once again, listening to Refocused Radio and watching this online, like always, want to say to you, Shannon, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.